Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Drak Reviews, where today we take on an unusual title that I wasn't sure if I was going to pick up until a few people requested it, as well as the popularity that is received, so much so to be able to get a movie in 2019. So today we dive into Detective Pikachu, the latest in the Pokemon Company's branching experiments to try and get Pokemon into every shade of our lives. And let's go ahead and start things off with the story. The story is pretty simple as far as setup here. You play a young Tim Goodman who is going to Rhyme City, where a lot of the game is based, in search of his father, Harry Goodman, a private detective who has gone missing. And Tim has the goal of being able to try and find him because he knows that he was on a big case due to his partner Baker, as well as the local police force continuing to look for him, but their search not really yielding any results. And when he arrives in Rhyme City, the very first moment, he comes across a roaming Pikachu with a weird detective hat. And what's even weirder is he can understand him. Yes, Pikachu speaks I guess it would be Japanese in this case, but English in this particular translation. He speaks English to him, kind of like Meowth in the anime, except cuter. After some hijinks ensue, you find out that this Pikachu is actually the Pokemon partner of his dad, Harry. It is then that both Tim and Pikachu decide to unite in searching for Harry and taking up his last case. Little do they know that what they have signed on to do is a bigger undertaking than they actually think it is. Overall, the story is actually pretty bland. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with you guys. The story is not bad by any sense. For a first entry, it's okay. It's not wow factor or anything like that. But one of the things that holds it back is that even though they did say that they were trying to design this for a family-based demographic, a lot of the jokes and a lot of the references make me think that they were leaning towards older Pokemon fans, not necessarily younger ones. And that's okay because it falls flat in both regards. I swear, the local kids in my neighborhood have heard dirtier jokes than actually placed in this game. And another thing that really does hurt it is that it is roughly a whodunit kind of deal. It's a mystery novel. And so at that point, that's what you do throughout most of the game. You solve mysteries, and through solving these mysteries, you uncover additional details leading you towards the disappearance of Harry Goodman. And unfortunately, the stories are not all that great. I would actually say you get more mystery out of, an Agatha Christie novel or even an original Arthur Conan Doyle compared to this one. So I've just got to say that I did take points off for this one just because, given the premise that they had, I can think of a dozen other games that have done this better and actually been able to put some complexity to it. And granted, they say through their demographics they decided not to do that. I have a feeling it's because they didn't really want to put a whole lot of effort into it, as you guys will see later on in this review. Moving on into visuals. Visuals is one of the few places where I really have no complaints. This game looks like a Pokemon game. It looks like it could fit into the Pokemon universe. It's maybe a little kiddie in some points, but a lot of characters, I could actually see their designs working in the Pokemon anime. So at that point, it's not really all that far of a stretch to be able to say, yeah, this could exist in the Pokemon universe that we all know exists. However, if I were to have one gripe, it would be some of the Pokemon designs I think are a little too blurry, a little too kiddie compared to what I'm used to in the original drawings or the concept art that comes out with each poster. But that's not that's nitpicking, frankly. I really do like the visuals that Detective Pikachu tried to offer. And with that being said, let's go ahead and move on into gameplay. In this review, you're going to find that both story and gameplay kind of have the same gripes. It's simplistic, overly simplistic. There are 9 chapters, I want to say 9 to 10 chapters in total towards this story, and the mysteries that you actually go out and solve are fairly simplistic. It is something along the lines of, where did this one Apom go that tried to steal a locket? Okay, you go and find the Apom, except he's injured. Okay, now you got to find out who injured the Apom, so et cetera, et cetera. There is an overarching plot that does happen, and it is kind of interesting, but it really isn't a majority of what you deal with in this game. A lot of what you deal with in this game is who stole this, who stole that, who hurt who. And that's the plots that that's the whodunits that you have to deal with. And frankly, they're not really well constructed either. I was literally able to figure out who the culprit was in every single case the second I saw the culprit on screen. I literally did that whole thing of he did it, he's the one that stole the recipe, that's the way it works. I was able to do it, and I was right. And what's funny is, I actually performed a little bit of an experiment that I wished I'd taped now. I took it around to kids in the neighborhood and actually asked them, like, how complex do you think this is? And they actually picked the culprits fairly easy, too, in some cases. So at that point, yeah, they could have done a whole lot more work with this. The other gripe that I have with gameplay here, and hence why I took a lot of points off of this one, is when you're in the investigation phase, it's obvious that since you're a detective, you're going to go and get testimony from the various people that are in the area and be able to start formulating theories as well as gather evidence and be able to figure out who did it. Well, in this case, unlike with other mystery type games that are out there, Detective Pikachu insists that you talk to everybody. And in some cases, some of those people really don't have anything to offer. But Drak, that just means you could probably skip them, right? Wrong. You can't even deduce until you've talked to every single person in the area. Pikachu will literally, as he is the detective here, will tell you you're not done investigating. So if you were hoping that you could just skip all of the inane dialogue and go right to the evidence because you've already figured things out fairly easily, nope, Pikachu will insist that you go around the area to talk to every single person. Oh yeah, and not just people. Because of the unique mechanic, which is kind of cool in concept, since you have a Pokemon partner who can speak your language, he can talk to the Pokemon in the area. And now you have to get testimony from them as well. And in a lot of cases, there are a few outliers where the Pokemon give you helpful hints as to who did it, or give you some helpful evidence. Most of the time, it's just, I love my owner. My owner's the greatest. He feeds me. That's most of what you actually have to deal with, hence why you really just kind of wish you could get to the point. And I know I've been making a bunch of other examples. Let's just give one or two of them. Well, at least one. One of my favorite series out there for mysteries is the Ace Attorney series. And one of the reasons that I do like it is, yes, it does have an investigation phase, but the investigation phase does not last that long. And in fact, you don't actually have to go through a lot of inane dialogue to be able to reach the conclusions that will help you get to the next court day. And in most cases, when you're going to an area, you're talking to maybe, well, at minimum one person, maybe two. So in other words, what I'm saying is that compared to Detective Pikachu, Ace Attorney is short, sweet, and to the point. And that's really my biggest gripe here. If you could have taken out a lot of that inane dialogue, you probably could have had a lot more intricate mysteries. And I have a feeling that because of all of the Pokemon you have to talk to, that's why we got very simplistic whodunits. Not because of the we're trying to reach to a younger demographic. That's just my opinion, though. And I will admit I did take quite a bit of points off for gameplay here. Moving on into audio. Audio is another department where I really don't have any complaints with this. The voiceover work was fine. There were a couple of points where the Pokemon sounded a little weird compared to what I'm used to, but granted, I watched the Pokemon anime back in the first couple of seasons, so I'm used to completely different actors and actresses, so kind of a nitpick. Aside from those, the voice cast was actually pretty good. They conveyed what they needed to convey. Pikachu's still a little weird, but I can at least get over that compared to Ryan Reynolds making Deadpool jokes in a Pikachu skin. I'll let that sink in for a second. And as far as audio is concerned, or as far as music is concerned, the music doesn't stand out, but it is cute and cuddly. I think it actually works with the aesthetic. I think that the areas that you go to, the music's fairly mellow. I would actually say if you up the tempo just a little bit, because there were a couple of areas that could be kind of sleep-inducing, but overall, not really a complaint. The audio wasn't bad. It wasn't overly high, overly low. And in fact, some of the tracks were pretty catchy. So I really don't have any complaints when it comes to audio. Moving on into replay value. Gotta be honest here, after you've done the full 10 chapters, there really isn't any replay value here as far as I'm concerned. I actually think that a lot of, well, even you guys' testimony has told me this, you probably won't even finish the game. because unfortunately, there's just not really anything intellectually stimulating enough unless you're a diehard Pokemon fan. But if you get through all the way to the first 10 chapters, you're not going to go and play it again. Unlike Ace Attorney or any of the other mysteries, I honestly think that they are more replayable just because of the fun factors that they have in them compared to Detective Pikachu, which kind of played it fairly mild throughout the entire experience. So at that point, it's very difficult for me to justify to you guys, unless maybe there was a sequel and a Pokemon fan wanted to relive it before Detective Pikachu 2 comes out, which I'm not even sure if that's going to happen unless it's in film form. Moving on into presentation. Does it all come together? In a way, yes. I'm not going to say that it comes together perfectly. I mean, obviously, the replay value isn't there, and there are a lot of gripes with the gameplay, but for a Pokemon fan, this is a nice thing to kill a few hours within your week. For a fan that's trying to look for something in between, I don't know, an actual Pokemon gen, it's not really going to be all that fulfilling, and the presentation isn't entirely going to be there for that kind of fan. Which is why I have no problem giving Detective Pikachu a 6 out of 10. It's above average, but not by much. It's fairly a bland game. It actually feels, the best way I know how to describe it is that it feels like the team didn't want to take any risks and basically coasted through development just to be able to get this out there and maybe just to help out with the advertisement of the movie. And because of their coasting and they didn't really take any risks, there really isn't a whole lot to this game that's enjoyable. I would actually dare say that other series like, say, Ace Attorney or Professor Layton do more ambitiously to be able to bring people in than Detective Pikachu did, which is a crying shame. This is actually a series that I might want to see more of, just to see if maybe they can fix the blandness and actually have worthwhile detective plots. I'm not saying you have to go full-on murder, but you could be a little bit more intricate in the plots that you're trying to design. I think it would be entirely possible. I mean, for crying out loud, there are tons of other games that are able to pull off murder and make it funny. So at that point, I think this is something that you could also look into as well. It's just unfortunate that in your first outing, you really didn't want to take any risks, and it very much shows in your final product. And now that I've hammered it into the floor, is it worth it? Currently, you can get Detective Pikachu for Nintendo 3DS only, and it is currently available brand new for $29.99. Is it worth it at that price? Absolutely not. I would not recommend anybody pay $30 for Detective Pikachu. I would instead say look for about a $15 to $20 price decrease before you pick it up, because it's more of a budget title kind of thing, and $30 for... That's full price for a 3DS game, by the way. Full price is not worth it for Detective Pikachu. I would dare say try and find that thing on sale, which I'm guaranteeing you your local GameStop or Best Buy are probably selling used copies at much better prices. And I would just say probably go that direction. For Pokemon fans, I would also say the exact same thing. I really don't think that if you look at the current gen of Pokemon or Pokemon Go, you're probably going to get a lot more enjoyment out of those than you are Detective Pikachu. So for $30, it's really not that worth it for you either. I would say maybe yield with you and say $5 off, 5 to 10. 10 at the very least, guys. It's not worth it. It's much more worth it at $19.99 than it is at $29.99. And that's going to go ahead and do it for my review of Detective Pikachu. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for your continued love, support, and patience with the channel. I really do appreciate it. And I'll be back in time for the next review.